to school if your kids aren't there already. Everyone is fine-tuning new routines right now.
It is all about new routines. So the big question is, how much sleep do your kids really need? It can be really the determining factor when it comes to good health and classroom success. News 8's Ashley Jacobs is live in Kearney Mesa this morning with the answer. Ashley?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, Angie and Nichelle, those kids are such good negotiators, too. Oh, I don't need to go to sleep just yet. But guess what, kids? We're on to you. So we're with Dr. Bhattacharjee this morning, and you have all the secrets when it comes to helping families find a good sleep routine. So let's start with, I think, probably the most popular question. How often do parents come up and say, how much sleep does my kid need? What's the answer?
Yeah, it's pretty common. The challenges are that a lot of parents don't know the answer to that question, and a lot of kids don't get enough sleep. So in fact, the majority of teenagers are not getting the recommended amount of sleep. So one of the things that we always do here, first step, is to kind of go over good sleep hygiene and how much sleep kids should get, given the high proportion of kids who are just not meeting the needs for adequate amounts of sleep.
Okay, so what would you recommend? Let's just look at the different age categories. What would you recommend for each group of kids?
So if you look at, let's start at teenagers, which is very topical because they're talking about school start times now in the California government. But teenagers should sleep at least about 8 hours. And if you look at school-age kids that are younger than high school, about 9 hours of sleep. So that should be your goal. Now, I think a lot of parents should really ask themselves, are their kids actually getting that much amount of sleep? And usually the answer, unfortunately, tends to be no.
Okay, and you have some other tips to help make that sleep a little bit easier to come by. Starting with routines, what time do we need to get the kids away from the tablets, the phones, all those electronics?
Yeah, this has become quite a challenge because technology, education, they're becoming so much reliant on screens. A lot of kids do their homework on tablets or computers. So what I typically recommend is no screens at least 1 hour before bedtime. If the child's having a tough time falling asleep, up to 2 hours before bedtime. And there are different ways to turn off the screen, sometimes just taking the tablet or phone away, sometimes turning the router off, sometimes making sure the child doesn't have cell phone activity. So you can be very creative, but kids also can be very creative just with the different ways they keep the screens on.
I bet all these kids at home are just loving you right now as parents are looking at their kids saying, see what the doctor said? Okay, let's talk about consistency because come Friday, Saturday, kids might try to bend the rules a little bit.
Right. So it can be a challenge for some kids, not all kids. You know, obviously there are social things that matter. You know, parents like to take their kids out to movies or their sports events or what have you. So from that regard, you know, we're okay with having some sleep in. But if a child is really having a lot of tough times falling asleep during school days, then it's really important to keep the wake and sleep times consistent. So when I see those kids who just can't make it to school, they can't wake up early enough, then I tell them, well, don't stretch it on the weekends, keep it within an hour.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for all the tips. And
pleasure.
as we send it back to you, I bet I made a lot of new kid friends today, too. So kids, you hear that? No more tablets, no more phones, lights out, and go to bed early tonight. Not even on the weekends.
Listen, here's our saving grace that he didn't talk about, Ashley, and I'm sure you'll agree with this. It's that time change that happens, what is it, November, December, when it gets darker sooner, about what, 4:30?
Yeah, no choices but to go to sleep.
Exactly.
It's dark.
And you know what, Angie and Nichelle, I would say morning people, we're probably the only population that look forward to that day all year long. I cannot wait until it gets darker.
I'm like literally counting the days.
So ready for it.
Yesterday when I was trying to go to sleep and it's 6:30 and my neighbor decided to mow the lawn, wasn't exactly thrilled about that. So yeah, looking forward to that time change.
I'm with you.
And I'm sure some parents are too.